This is AP Strange, and I am here to present a presentation by the one and only Alan Greenfield, Dr. Alan Greenfield, UFO researcher, part of the teen ufologist movement in the 1960s, no longer a teen, and he is here to talk about occult lodges.
Oh, I'm no longer a teen. Is Dave Halpern a teen? Is Rick Halpern a teen? Is Gene Steinberg a teen? He was never a teen, even when he was a teen. That's neither here nor there. I'll shut up now.
And we are coming to you with a presentation. That was Alan's big intro here. And through much difficulty, we must tell you, we're going to begin this little chat with how the Black Lodge interrupted our prior conversation and destroyed the recording. Because I guess we were touching on subjects that they don't want you to know.
Even the term the Black Lodge. Suddenly, every time we said something really interesting, we got these clicks and feedback. My computer died. It's still dead. I'm using my phone from here in orbit where I'm relatively safe, not around the Earth. It's around Uranus. Don't laugh. I'm not going to call. It's not right around Uranus.
Well, while you're running rings around Uranus, we might as well get this thing going. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty strange. I mean, I'm gonna try to clip some clips from it and see if we can include it in this. But I mean, we were hearing clicking noises.
If you can, please do, because it was excellent material. But we really got defeated on that. Not only that, but when you played it back, if I understand correctly, it was unusable as a whole thing because you were hearing me talk from two different places and you say two different things. Pleiadians are coming through.
It was some real Twin Peaks stuff. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. That's very well put. Yeah.
But it was Twin Greenfields.
It was scary. It was right up there with the knock on the door. Hi, we're the Men in Black. Here's our credentials. Oh, yeah. Okay. You can't talk about this stuff anymore. Oh, okay. I won't do that. You want to see one of my katanas? How about my vintage Browning picked up by my uncle in World War II? But that's another story. Oh, it's cocked and locked. What does that mean? Oh, now it's 2 Men in Black. Oh, it's only one. Oh, no, don't bleed on our carpets in the hall. This place is subsidized.
And that's how Alan got kicked out of his last apartment.
No, but you're accurate in spirit there. That just makes me look bald. I'm not bald. I have hair. Some of my teeth.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I can't fit the clip in, just to describe it, I mean, aside from overlapping voices, two Allens, possible intervention from Terry R. Wrist, and the clicking noises was the weirdest part to me because it just evoked it had the vibe of a phone being tapped, which is kind of absurd because we're talking digitally via the internet. The more spookier.
Is a magical.
Is that what that is? Or are we being tapped?
Either both are.
The phone. The line is being tapped here.
There are clicks on my phone that are making me pause more than I need to. I'm not having senior moments.
Yeah, I
By the way,
I don't know what that is. That's very strange. I've never heard that before.
Well, go ahead. I will answer any questions.
Well, there are clicks on my phone that are making me pause more than I need to. I'm not having senior moments. But
yeah. It might be Terry R. Wrist.
No!
So you wouldn't expect to hear the clicking sounds associated with phone taps in the 60s, but there you have it. So.
And I don't know now whether that would happen at all, but I'm reading a novel, James Elroy, called Occult 6000. Don't read it if you don't have a very strong stomach. But anyway, it's about bugging in the 1960s. And it refers to the fact that, if you use a scrambler, there are clicks. If you are bugging a phone, there are clicks. And I could be reading anything. I mean, this is not typical reading fare for me. So we'll call that a synchronicity because we were getting basically what I was reading in a novel. And I expect that if it were a Philip K. Dick novel, because he talks about that in his novels.
Yeah, that's true.
I had a weird experience once when I think I was traveling with my parents back in the Stone Age, and there were dinosaurs outside. But we were at a motel, and I was reading the last of The Man in the High Castle, one of my favorites and a favorite in science fiction circles. And I got to the last page where it's talking about, I think his name was Mr. Tagomi, having an alternate reality experience where he goes into our world. And I knew from the scuttlebutt in science fiction circles that Phil Dick had used I Ching to write the book. And as I thought that and came to the last page where basically the guy was in a different reality, our reality more or less, I got this weird sensation. Am I closing the book having finished it? Or is it closing me? And I know I can't convey all the weirdness of that, but it felt mighty weird. I hesitated to close the book. I've reread it several times, and it hasn't redone that, but it was weird because he was a weird guy.
That's for sure. I think Philip K. Dick may have played a hand in fracturing our reality, or maybe giving us a glimpse of what the real reality is.
I think that's the deal. He really saw it for what it is. I think his definition of insanity was something to do with it's what's there when everything else has been disproved. And I'm fracturing his point, but nevertheless, he was the soul of the late 20th century, I think. And I don't know, I've read every single book that he wrote, which is a rare thing for me to do, and most of his short stories, and even some of his nonfiction, where he has his own encounters with the men in black. Really?
Yeah, I've heard about that. Speaking of Men in Black, at the risk of incurring their wrath again, that plays heavily into your book on the Black Lodge, the secrets of the real Black Lodge revealed.
Revealed.
That you co-wrote with
available from all better booksellers.
Now, Steve,
I'm not plugging it. I'm simply mentioning it.
That was weird because it was incredibly difficult to buy off of Amazon before. You had to trick Amazon into showing you the listing for the longest time. And
not only that, my printer, well, not my printer, my publisher uses an outside printer for books that he thinks are going to do well. And the printer that he uses ordinarily is very good at what they do. Well, I gave up trying to count the number of typos that wound up in the final version. Well, not the final version, we'll probably have another version of Secrets of the Real Black Lodge. because there are a bunch of them. And, I mean, the publisher had professional proofreaders, and because I have trouble spelling my own name. It's ALAN, right? No, ALLEN. But, there was interference with that. And then when it went up on, I don't know about other sites, but I got a number of people who said, well, I can't find it on Amazon. And I knew it was there. And it popped up and down and up and down. And I think that's solved now, not by me. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, what it ended up being, what I realized was if you looked on the app, it would not appear. You couldn't make it appear. But then if you did like a Google search, you could get it on the browser, and you would have to sign in to Amazon from the browser, but you couldn't get it on the app. So I think there are Black Lodge members working for Amazon, probably busting strikes.
Oh, if I were a discarnate being working for the ultimate destruction of humanity, I would certainly have paid agents at Amazon, by far the largest bookseller and distributor in the world, I imagine. And I would also have somebody or some bodies on Wikipedia, because any of us that have read Orwell know that he who controls the past controls the future. Oh, it's a very Jewish nose. I don't know.
Oh boy. Yeah, so we're diving right into
the Mossad is at my door now. That's okay. I like them. Okay. Just don't. Never mind.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of dove right into the deep end with this, as opposed to our first time around where we eased into it and then got snuck up on. So I think we're in the clear at this point if we haven't already been. Yeah, don't start with that again.
No. If mocking it is one of the things that I recommend to people with any negative occult theme. Of course, that doesn't work on bullets or anything, but basically in occult circles, they love fear, the demons. They love fear, and they absolutely hate humor. So I prescribe humor for my distressed students, of whom there are many.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you had told me once, probably the first time we emailed, I asked you about the role of humor in the occult, and you said after any major occult operation, you should take a break and watch a bunch of Looney Tunes cartoons or a Mel Brooks movie. So, and I find that to be solid advice.
Absolutely, and that is among. Are among. That are among. No, that doesn't sound right. Oh, what the hell! It's been a long time since I've been in school, folks. Centuries and centuries. They were teaching in Middle English back then.
But I thought you were a teen ufologist.
I was, but that was later. No, it wasn't. I'm lying through my teeth.
Yeah. You were so much older then. You're younger than that now.
Copyright. Robert Zimmerman, Minnesota, 1964.
Yeah. Forget the MIB. The record company's going to come after us. Shut us down. So
well, they're not going to get to me here in Switzerland. So what am I worried about?
Yeah. The Trollenberg.
And you're there in Moldova, So
yeah. So last time we did this very same interview, this is the alternate reality version of it. I asked you to kind of define what an occult lodge is, but I think this time I'm going to switch it up since spontaneity is the name of the game. and we can take that apart and define what you would consider to be occult and what you mean by the word lodge. Because the Black Lodge, as you define it in the book, is a little bit different than your standard like Freemasonry building where gentlemen meet once every full moon or whatever.
Well, there is that. I think the word occult simply means hidden. I mean, it's, in various, it's used in astronomy for a planet occulting or the moon occulting a particular star. But it means hidden. Curiously, so does the word Kabbalah, which also means hidden. But I think that it refers to, in practice, it refers to the secrecy which I discourage involved in paranormal intentional process, which is what the occult really is, or certainly what magic really is. It's a process that happens all the time, but with the intent to make it happen. And that is essentially the bare bones of the entire occult universe. That and the results of various efforts to say, I've been working with the Enochian system for the first time in years. And that's certainly the output of that and of trans-channeling and of oracles is in order to tap into the wisdom of what the Theosophists used to call the Great White Brotherhood. I try to avoid that term because it sounds like a meeting of the Klan in Mississippi.
Right.
Yeah. Not really. While there is some overlap in the early days of the Theosophical Society, I don't think that that's an appropriate term. But secret chiefs is the term that I favor because of the magical communities I came up in, or the hidden masters, or just the masters, which is to say discarnate beings who used to be human, as opposed to something that was never human. And they have ascended, and instead of going, well, the Eastern term is bodhisattva, a person who has reached a point that they're capable of Buddhahood, but who assume a responsibility to bring all other sentient beings to Buddhahood before they enter into nirvana, whatever nirvana. And I think that the same thing applies in Western practices, but we don't have in English anyway, a linguistic equivalent of the Sanskrit or Pali material that so well captures the notions that we use in Western magic. When we say angel or demon, we generally mean angel or demon. But of course, those are manifestations of something very different and probably having a lot to do with alternate realities or other dimensions, also known in current quantum physics as brains, not the kind of brains that you find in Return of the Living Dead. Brains. But branes, as in membranes.
Right.
And there may be any number of those, which shall break to the contrary. But there may be an infinite number, in which case, if they interpenetrate our own reality, it explains much of the now you see it, now you don't aspect of everything from Bigfoot to flying saucers.
Well, that was a great answer to that. Because
Stop you right there at Area 51.
yeah. All right, so as far as the lodge aspect goes to it, so I mean the way I'm conceiving of it is that lodge can have more than one meeting here, where it can be kind of literally an assembly or a group of magic practitioners, or people that are converged for a purpose, or there could be a more metaphysical meaning to the word lodge as you use it, particularly for the Black Lodge, meaning more of a current of magical working. Would you agree with that, or am I
Yeah,
misinterpreting?
no, you're getting it right. Although I will say this, the magical, quote unquote, lodges that are corporeal and made up of ordinary Joes and Janes profess to be an entrance into those higher realms that I was just describing. They all do that in one form or another, from the Theosophist to the Golden Dawn to the OTO to the AA to the OTA. Only the people who try to put this in paranormal terms, like not a lot, the academic parapsychologists and who are not working with a magical lodge, they're working with scientific equipment and talented people to try to assess what, if anything, is actually happening. Curiously, the first organization that I know of to use that sort of thing, they were into UFOs before there were UFOs, was a Borderland Sciences Research Associates, used to be, it's now a foundation, but they were talking about the ether ships that were coming to Earth in 1945, which is a couple of years before, at least where public consciousness was concerned.
Right.
And they have no, they have a director, but they have no initiatory hierarchy, nor do they have initiations. And the common denominator with many, if not all of these groups is if you join and are part of it and follow the program, you will attain a higher level. Just be sure to cross my palm with large bills. I think they are, this kind of gets into what we did in the forbidden version of this. But I think that most of them are doomed to failure in those areas and are best avoided because simply you cannot have dogma and hierarchy and expect to attain really higher states of consciousness. I mean, any initiation worth its salt can scare the bejesus out of you and fulfill the formula of mystery play initiations, which is inducing crisis in one way or another, and then resolution, which will lead one to a higher level of understanding, according to which degree or air or whatever one is, whatever one uses in a particular system. But if you have dogma and hierarchy and dire oaths, mostly derived from Freemasonry, but they're blood oaths. And if you're doing that and swearing allegiance to some leader, especially if it's an organization that has a leader for life, chances are you're getting a lot of personal static and not getting the accoutrements are there and the trappings are there, but somewhere along the development of these bodies, which I traced in one of my earlier books, which is still available, Uh, but I forget the name of it. It's
Is that a
traces.
history?
Yeah.
Was that a history of magic, 1700 to 2000?
Yes, it is the history of modern magic from 1700 to 2000. Because earlier than 1700, it's really hard to not get into the land of mythology.
Mhm.
And later than 2000 would be later than I wrote the book. But it is still very useful to trace the authentic and inauthentic traditions in magic. And consistently, I find that those who have that dogmatic ideology and authoritarian power structure built around an individual or little circle of individuals, you start off with material that really is part of the authentic tradition, but you wind up uh, swearing to oaths and also, in most cases, emptying your wallet in order to
Mhm.
achieve enlightenment. And that is probably no different from the Eastern practice, albeit it has been popular in the West of, since the 1960s, and arguably earlier than that, of the guru Sila relationship in Eastern mysticism, which is basically what the guru says is what you believe.
Right.
And it's what you believe. The displaced guru, uh, J. Krishnamurti, spent most of his life after having freed himself of his theosophical connections, telling people it's there within yourself, just find it. And he probably wouldn't even approve of my saying it that way. But hey, he was an exception to the rule.
Well, he was
Uh,
groomed to be the world teacher by Ledbetter and Besant, right? As the
yeah, two very reliable people.
so I mean, no, he's an extraordinary character and had a lot of great things to say against that very idea that he was groomed and prepared to be. Um, he was very nearly manipulated into that kind of position. So
Oh, he was. They picked him up as a child
yes, yeah,
and indoctrinated him in theosophical and related doctrines and set up an order for him to be the world teacher, much to Aleister Crowley's distress, because
yeah,
he also claimed to be the world teacher. But there is no world teacher. The world teacher is within each of us if we tune into it. And nobody has a monopoly on truth. And that is basically one of the uh, basic premises that I operate under, that your approach to the truth should always be provisional, but it should never fall into dogma or listening to the guru or teacher or prelate, or, the term will vary about that. The leader's voice would be good in for politically minded people to also take on. Just
yeah,
because the
yeah.
leader says it, don't make it true.
Well,
Trust me,
um,
I went to school.
uh, well, uh, this might be a bad time to bring up our future courses where you can follow our guruship that we're planning to offer later. So we'll not touch on that right now.
But if you get 3 box tops from Quaker Oats and send them in, we'll give you a 10% discount. But remember, at the end of our URL, put /the guys.
Yeah. And you can also sign up for our newsletter at the merch table in the back after we're done.
At the merch table in the back, I'll be glad to autograph your books. And I hope you're all here to buy books and listen to the pearls of wisdom of the many, many speakers at this historic conclave.
Yeah, actually, this would we probably should have led with that. Thank you, Mr. Sprague, and all the other wonderful presenters, and all of you for
Shout
tuning in.
out to Mr. Sprague. Thank you for inviting me and not inviting AP this year so that I can get him to cue me and reduce that great mind of his to being Ed McMahon.
You are correct,
I'm sorry.
sir.
Right. Yes.
We're making all the references that the kids will love. This is very Gen Z oriented, you know. All the kids are talking the Johnny Carson show these days. So
well, to all the Gen Zers out there, I should say, there is no disclosure because there's nothing to disclose except what independent researchers like us have come to, because the truth is the government, for the same reason I think that the lodges of magic, to use Mary Blavatsky's disparaging term, get fouled up, which is power corrupts, as Lord Acton said. He said further, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And he was referring, I think, specifically to the established church in England. And I think it applies, however, to all kinds of institutions. Those that have some answerability to their constituency are better than those that are ad vitam for life. But still, there tends to be, in all systems, a hierarchy that is not subject to question. And the thing is, you need to explore, and you also need to have, in the words of my late friend Robert Anton, who always called me the UFO guy for some reason, you have to have a cast iron bullshit detector. And I said, bullshit, this could be.
I believe so. That should be fine. Yeah.
Well, I know the secrets, and you don't.
Yeah.
And if you believe that, you've missed my point altogether.
Right.
Beckley and Gray Barker are the two bad boys of ufology. I also think they were among those that were closest, dangerously close to the truth.
Yeah. Well, they were both kind of trickster figures. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, the tricksters are essential to any real initiation, which brings us back to your question. Great segue. If you want to not be a solo practitioner, I mean, you can read, and in the previous forbidden version of this, I talked about, what you should do if you're going to practice magic. You should start out with some form of meditation. My preference is the jhana, or as called in China, or was called in China, Chan, and in Japan is still called Zen. It's a sitting meditation, and it centers you, which is very important. Somewhere along the magical path, you will feel, in the original sense of the term, panic. And meditation calms your mind and allows you to go on to the second level, which is uh, protective magic. Read the Unfortunate's book, The Psychic Self-Defense. Learn. I'm not big on learning things by heart, but learn the lesser vanishing ritual with pentagram, perfectly not flawlessly, and practice doing it under duress because you're gonna need it. And just in case, you should also familiarize yourself with some classical exorcisms, which you can find in a lot of magical memoirs, uh, and also in the Missal Romanum, the Roman Catholic Missal. So they have a lot of experience with dealing with angels and demons. So I would recommend that as one form because it's a lot easier. I have told students for decades, it's a lot easier to invoke than to vanish. So we're vanishing first. Because once you have attained to some higher ether or have congress in one form or another with some being, getting rid of them afterwards is a lot harder than bringing them in. The techniques for bringing them in are well known. So are those the magicians of banishing them. But let's just say most people don't take that as seriously until they're in deep trouble. So learn that, and then if you need to read everything, good, bad, and otherwise, about occultism and magic. Certainly watch all the episodes of the Hellier series. People who deal with research correctly, which is their witness, ghost hunters, all the other bullshit shows. And then, if you're of a mind to, and this is the only self-serving part of this in the elbow, free for nothing, you might want to join if you have Facebook access, which I have off and on, depending on who you're monitoring, to the Worldwide Free Illuminist group on Facebook, and basically say, I'm kind of new to this stuff, but I've been studying. I would like to be in touch with a free Illuminist local person or group, or alternately maybe form one of my own. And that is a great plug-in because there are thousands of people that have taken that path. Other than that, I'm not sure how you would go about it if you live in a big psychic center like New York or LA. Just try to avoid getting involved in the organizations. The first thing they talk about are the fees, and second thing are the first time you are obliged to take an oath. Go ahead and take it so you don't, cause problems, but get the hell out of it and undo it. Because if you were lured into something, the fact is you are not bound by it. It is judgment runs both ways, as I was once trying to say.
Yeah. Well,
does that answer your question?
I think it does. We could get into. Well, I'll pose it as a question to you. How would you define free illuminism as opposed to other lodges? It's just you've been a proponent of this as a more inclusive and I guess less dodgy version of occult groups and working, right? So free illuminism as distinguished from
decentralist.
Right. So anarcho
It's sort of modeled on syndicalist ideas, which are think globally, act locally. But I kind of tried to capsulize what I think it should be, but others are free to make it something entirely different. Um, I was an early experimenter in that area, but I wasn't the first. And where to go with that? There are three general principles involved that I have mentioned, and I believe that they're in the introductory material on the Worldwide Freedom site, which is, let me reduce it, no dogma. If it has a dogma, if it has a fixed belief system that you must believe in to be involved, walk away from it. It's not free illuminism. With the exception of things like directly paying expenses. Like if you have a party, somebody's got to buy the party tickets. There should be no fees involved, and if you don't, if you're unable to afford it, you certainly shouldn't be excluded for financial reasons. Local bodies are free to do what they want to do, and once they're chartered, and they can be chartered by any local body, including mine, they are not subject to the parent lodge's authority because they're autonomous once they're chartered. So, and if they're chartered and there's a fee involved for chartering it, go away. It's not for the humans. And if you avoid the dogma and authoritarian structure, which would be somebody that's elected for life or appointed for life, who just basically claims that the Pleiadians have made him the chief spokesperson on Earth. And walk away from it. That's not free illuminism. So it's easier to define what isn't free illuminism than what is, because the intention is for the local person and or group is self-defining. So why have an association at all? And the only answer I can give is the only excuse I believe that there is for having organization, which is if you get into something as, I almost said spellbinding, that's a double entendre, as spooky, as the occult, you best have a support group. And what free illuminism does is it provides a worldwide free communion of people that are on the same kind of path that you're on. And without dictating to you, they're there for your commiseration. And occasionally it can go off the deep end saying, hey, just because Carlos and Don Juan said it doesn't mean that it's necessarily something that you need to believe yourself. That's it.
Yeah.
Techniques are going to be learned from trial and error and from people who seem to be something on the ball about it. But you always have to go provisional because magic is a gradual unfolding. And if you try to say it's done this way and not that way, you wind up kind of being boring, but you also wind up not being very enlightened. And also, it tends to be not very tolerant of any way that's different than your own.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
It's derived from personal experience, among other things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, this is some stuff that you've written about in one of your other books. We'll plug one of your other ones, The Grail Within. You, you get into some of that kind of manipulation, and I mean, it's mostly a book about sex magic, but also things to look out for in that regard.
Well, there are a lot of books about sex magic, in quotes, but most of them, if not all of them, with the possible exception of Lewis Culling's long ago book, which I think was called Sexual Magic, they don't deal with their own experiences. And in my experience, there is a great deal of exploitation, often of women, it's also of men, where sexual magic is concerned. It's a magnet for all kinds of authoritarian people that are basically better served by a swingers club than by any form of magic. But if you apply the principles that I mentioned earlier, meditation, followed by psychic self-defense, followed by reading everything you can on the subject, and then get involved, which can take you a couple of years. But if you're sincere about this stuff, the fact is it's going to take you, it's a lifetime and maybe many lifetimes of quest. You need to be aware that there are vipers in the woods, especially when it comes to sexual magic. So be wary of that. I have seen it, I have experienced it, I know it can be very unpleasant and considerably illegal. So I wrote a book that was basically the first half of it talks about the theoretical stuff and says what you just said, basically. Beware, beware. And it means it. The second half is largely about my own experiences, a very awkward thing to write about, but I felt like nobody talks about their own experiences in the book. People talk about it to their immediate colleagues, but they don't relay not only what they are, but how to do them. So I just gave them a bit of that, and The Grail Within is probably, again, with the exception maybe of Lewis Culling's long ago book, probably the only book that really discusses what to expect at a personal level with this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean that gets back to what we were talking about earlier, where the personal experience, the experiential end of it, and I mean that's the real initiatory thing. That's the whole journey. Is the story that you begin when you embark on that journey towards the towards enlightenment, I guess, but for lack of a better term. But
No, I think that's a good term. I mean,
right.
You don't want to say nirvana because that term is widely misunderstood in the West. And the ultimate danger there is becoming power obsessed. And that's where the Black Lodge comes in. A lot of people think the Black Lodge is, I don't know, in some building in Manhattan. You go there and there's a brass plate on the door saying Black Lodge.
Right.
A smaller plaque that says Septembryo, which may be familiar.
Yeah.
Fans of demonology. But the fact is that the Black Lodge is actually the, how shall I put it, former human beings who have attained a very high level of initiation, but have chosen, unlike those people who are the secret chiefs of the Third Order or the former term was Great White Brotherhood or the Masters or the Theosophical Masters or some people choose to project off the planets and other solar systems. There are human beings that have attained, and in the case of the secret chiefs, they want a humanity in attaining, and the Black Lodge is dedicated to just the opposite, not attaining false deeds, false flags, and ultimately the destruction of the human race, which they don't care being incorporeal and immortal, but they don't like having competition. So
Yeah.
there is that war on a level that is not the ultimate level, but it is certainly the higher level that one sees in occultism and magic. Shows up on occasion, notably with John Dee and Kelly and their successors in the more modern occult movements.
Yeah. I mean, I see it in part as being encouraging people with talents and knowledge in occultism towards their baser instincts, kind of encouraging that kind of selfish drive in people. Would you say that's an aspect or like a tactic of the Black Lodge?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
think somebody must have whispered in Goebbels' ear or something.
Right.
Triumph of the will. Beware of that word. It has
Right.
many meanings, but one is my way or the highway. And that is just not forgive me, not kosher.
Yeah. Well, I can't argue with you on that one. All right, so we're nearing an hour here, so I figure we could wrap this up and end on a high note. I think we covered quite a lot of things this time around, and hopefully the recording isn't as botched as the first one.
If it is, we're not speaking.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah, we'll do it live. Screw it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. As we look out on this empty room, reflecting our sound back to us, we're reminded of other places that we have gone where there was nobody who gave a damn about what we had to say. And rightly so, as we are. And then I could launch into my famous talk on the four magicians in the tarot,
The four
which
magicians
is
in
a
the tarot?
separate talk altogether.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we'll have to save that for next time, I think. We don't have time to get into that one. So,
Well, maybe we'll do it on a podcast
sure.
sometime in the near future.
Sounds like a plan. Any final thoughts on everything that we've said today, whenever this airs?
I hope that this is useful to those who are aspiring magicians and inspirational to those who are journeymen, intermediate magi. If one is an advanced practitioner, I hope they won't find everything that we've had to say lame or antagonistic. It's not meant to be, I don't think. I hope they don't get thrown into a tizzy because we both agree that humor is very important to the work in order to avoid being one of the many people who are quite crazy involved in this stuff. Some of them started out as being, okay people and wound up falling victim to their own egos and That serves the purposes of the Black Lodge. It does not serve the purposes of the Secret Chiefs or any sincere practitioner of the magic path. And if you would care to buy any of my books, they are Secrets of the Real Black Lodge Revealed, its predecessors, the Complete Secret Cipher of the Euthanautes, are readily available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and I like to say, wherever fine books are sold.
Good stuff. And also at the merch table in the back, where you can get a selfie with Alan Greenfield.
Yes, at the merch table in the back, and that's certainly we'll be glad to autograph it. That's really what we do. It's the only time we get to show Gen Z people what cursive writing looks like.
All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to interview you, Alan, for your presentation. And we'll sign
you.
up here.
This went very polished. I'm sure it's going to upset the guys, but I haven't heard a lot of clicks